Welcome to Excellence Through Execution, where ambition meets expertise. Hosted by Jason Weseman, this podcast dives into the world of business, exploring the stories of success and the lessons of failure through engaging discussions. Each episode, Jason brings insights from the forefront of business strategy and leadership. Get ready to discover the keys to business excellence.
Hello and welcome to the latest edition of the Excellence Through Execution podcast. As always, I'm your host, Jason Weseman, and today I'm thrilled to be joined by Jeff Meilander, owner of Redwall. Jeff, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yes, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Really excited to learn more about your background. We had a little conversation before, and I think you have a great story to tell. Why don't you kick us off with a brief background as to who you are and what Redwall is and how we got here?
Sure. Yeah, no, sounds good. So Jeff Meilander, owner of Redwall. Redwall is a apparel decorating company located in, we're actually in Oak Creek. Kind of bounced around in business for about 23, 24 years now. Kind of background there. So I started the company, very grassroots. I started printing shirts in my parents' garage when I was, in high school. Kind of got into the concept of screen printing and just, I like the art, I guess, end of that and whatever. I played in bands, shortly after high school, and that's kind of when I really got into screen printing for the purpose of printing shirts for my band to go on tour, pay for gas money, and get around and rock and roll type stuff.
Yeah.
And then kind of from there, I liked the art form and I liked the concept of running a business. It was kind of quick that I had other friends that were in bands and small businesses and schools and stuff like that were like, hey, can you do this for us as well? So, very just kind of organically just kind of grew it based on people asking me to do it for them.
Sure.
I started the company with $600. I bought some equipment, made some parts of the equipment that I had, exposure unit to make screens. I actually made that myself out of, fluorescent lights and plywood and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But then, kind of as it continued to grow, started, buying just more equipment. Went from the name Redwall comes from I was going to school at UWM in Milwaukee, and I was printing. I lived in like a triplex type thing with some of my friends of mine. It was like a blue house on the corner of Oakland and Bradford. But the basement was red brick wall, so I needed a name. And one of my friends said, "Why don't you just call it Redwall? That's
Perfect.
You're always down there in that red wall." So I did that. This was like 2002, I guess, and I always thought I could just change it someday if I wanted to, but it just kind of stuck, and here we are. But anyway, yeah. So kind of fast forward through the years, went from working in a basement to working in moving down to Bayview and working in a what actually used to be like a meat, like a butcher shop. So
Sure.
it's kind of old, turn of the century type building where I lived upstairs, worked downstairs, storefront type thing. Even though it was really just for production, really didn't have like traffic coming into like a store. But
Yeah.
then I had about 2 or 3 people kind of working with me then in 2000, and it was like about 2005, 6. 2008 moved to a larger location in Bayview. Ended up probably through that from 2008 to 2012 grew pretty big growth there. We got into automatic equipment, so that was when I started printing. Before I was just printing t-shirts by hand, just kind of like a screen printing press. Got an automatic equipment, which just increased our output, kind of brought me into a whole different market of decorating for like contract decorating for like advertising agencies, things like that. So in that time frame, we got up to 4 automatics, had probably about 25 people working there. Got into embroidery during that time period as well. 2012 moved into about a 25,000 square foot building in St. Francis. Continued to grow, added a few more automatic presses. We were only in that building for about 2 years before we started outgrowing it pretty quickly. So then in 2014, 15, identified the building that we're currently in Oak Creek. Moved here in 2015. It's about a 100,000 square foot building.
Wow.
Bought another building right across the street in 2016. That's about 75,000 square feet. We use about half of that for apparel production. And, here we are today, but, pretty powerful apparel decoration output. We do screen printing, embroidery, digital production, e-com fulfillment, direct film transfer decoration, and about 150 people working here.
Wow.
And cranking it out, So
All from the garage.
that's right. Yep, exactly.
What were some of your cool band names growing up or when you were doing it?
No, but you don't have to get into that. No, there were quite a few. I mean, it was some, yeah, I mean, probably like towards the end there when I was still playing in bands, I was trying to um, run production. I played in a band called Spitalfield that was based in Chicago, and we toured quite a bit, but I was in the van, doing art separations and invoicing and things like that, and then sending it back to some people that were working, in the shop. And it was kind of crazy to think back to that I would like, sit there. And this was like 2007, 8. So, we're using like weird, I had like flip phones that could connect to my computer to do these really slow email transfers and things
Nice.
like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it made it work. But then it was shortly after that I stopped doing the band stuff and just kind of went full on with the apparel decoration. So
In those first couple of years in the garage and then in the Redwall basement, what kind of revenue are we talking about? Like what was coming through the door?
um I'd have to think about that one because things have changed a lot.
Sure, I was just
But
curious,
yeah, I
like,
mean, yeah, I mean, it was, again, for small operation. I mean, yeah, I don't know. I usually keep that stuff pretty close anyway. But yeah, I mean, we had. I mean, it was good, I suppose. I mean, it was enough to continue to grow. That's really
yeah,
kind of always been my philosophy, is reinvest back into the business. And that's really kind of always been my philosophy, is just if we're doing well and we're making money, let's figure out ways that we can expand, whether it's bigger presses, more colors, capabilities, faster production, bigger buildings, all that kind of stuff. Just keep investing back into the business to just keep growing. Really what
yeah.
that's really what the driving kind of growth has been, like what our customers want. If they want something and we can't do it, that drives me crazy. And I want to figure out how we can expand to be able to fulfill their needs.
Well, yeah, going from 25,000 to 100,000 in one fell swoop is quite a jump.
Yeah, it was a big jump. At that point, the goal for me was to double our capacity. So, we were running 6 automatic presses. I wanted to get up to 12, like just very quickly.
Yeah,
So it was a big step. Obviously, big financial capex investment and all that. But it was what was needed at the time, because we were kind of growing at a rate that would be unsustainable without having this kind of like extra capacity to merge into. So
sure.
so
Well,
yeah.
it's absolutely a success story. 21 years and going. So
Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you.
most a lot of the people that we see it didn't quite make that. So that's very impressive.
Yeah,
Let's go
thanks.
back to the when you're first doing your bands and you're kind of starting to do some printing on your own. And what inspired you to say, what, this is what I want to do. I'm going to start a business. I'm
Yeah.
gonna I'm gonna do this.
Yeah, I think I've always just kind of had that like entrepreneurial spirit, I guess, even as when I was really young as a kid. I think that the band world that I kind of grew up in was very DIY, very, very much so. Like I never even thought about at the time the fact of like going out and hiring like going to a company and hiring them to print our shirts. Like it was
Yeah,
just like, we just have to figure out how to do this if we're going to do this. So, I think that kind of mindset of just like figure it out, do it on your own, kind of set your own goals and aspirations and just figure out how to get there. I've kind of always had that. So I think that once starting the business and kind of seeing that it was some traction was there, and people asking me to do it for them, I really just wanted to like latch onto that and keep going. I was working other like part-time jobs. I was delivering pizzas and going to school, and worked at a whole bunch of stuff, right? But I was doing this and just kind of like the fact that, of course, it's on my own terms and I'm able to
sure.
set my own hours type thing, which really turns into like that's all your
Yeah,
hours.
a lot more hours than you thought.
But no, it's all good because you're doing it for yourself. So
Do you have like a wall quilt of a bunch of old T-shirts from way back when?
I have some. Yeah, we've got a one of our conference rooms here has a whole bunch of stuff from that we've done, more recent stuff probably, but I've got boxes of some of the old stuff too, just laying around. Just kind of fun to look at sometimes.
Sure. Well, you kind of talked about, how setting your own hours became all hours. It's a really good point. But and what are some other common misconceptions that people have about running a business, about being the boss?
Um, I think some of it's is growing a business is that you always know what you're doing,
Yeah,
right? I mean, a lot of this from for me at least has been very just trial and error. Like trying to figure out, just learning about a business. When I got into this, I didn't I didn't understand how to have employees and payroll and, the compliance things, all that kind of stuff. And then you're getting into dealing with cities and fire inspections and electrical codes, and, things like that I think that, you don't necessarily know. And I think sometimes when you look at a business owner, you say, okay, well, they must know exactly what they're doing all the time to be able to do this. The truth is probably don't, right? You gotta kind of figure it out as the challenges come up. And every day there's something different. Another reason I like running a business is just because even though that can create stress of the kind of like day-to-day challenges, it's nice that not every day is going to be the same. And especially what we do with apparel decoration, every design is different, every combination, it's just the way we got to think about setting up designs or how to deal with certain types of apparel or whatever it is. Everything is different. There's always a different variable that gets involved. It's not just the same thing every day. And that goes to just running a business in general. There's always some new challenge that comes up that you got to figure out a way to work through. And sometimes there's no manual, you got to rely on what intuition and things, but also then just, I think, surround yourself with good support people, from accounting to attorneys to, bankers, all that kind of stuff, having a good network. That's always been very important to me, and really helped me in those times of trying to grow and figure out, okay, I don't really know what I'm, the best way to do this, and trying to bounce that off of kind of professional peers, I suppose, is important, I think.
Yeah.
So.
Well, you bring up a good point then, kind of a segue is as things are constantly evolving, constantly changing, how do you stay adaptable? How do you stay open to change?
Sure.
How do you stay innovative?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's really important to me. Just in general, it's always been, I want to be at the cutting edge of what we're doing, of my industry. So I think I'm always just open to that regardless. And sometimes it is strange. Our industry has gone through a kind of a change in that, we do we do screen printing, embroidery, digital production. A big thing in our industry is transfer application. That's really become big. And, a lot of times people think transfers and they're thinking like in the 80s and 90s, transfers were kind of like the cheapest, low quality way to do t-shirts. And we've seen very big technological changes in the digital printing world and how that can be used on apparel. So like we embrace that. And that is one thing that's kind of unique about what we do. And that oftentimes larger print shops, screen printers kind of stay with the analog screen print and they kind of focus on that. Digital printers tend to be very tech focused and they focus on the digital production for like e-com fulfillment. And we make it a point to do both. Again, we've got customers that want both. I don't like to say no, so we got to figure out how to do all of that. And as far as keeping up on all that, it's just really, I'm pretty active within our industry as far as going to trade shows, seminars, things like that. I always want to get out and know the manufacturers and just other just printers. I pretty good network of other print shops, people that I know that are in the industry, and that just helps to kind of just see what everybody's doing, technological advances that are coming along. Really just going to trade shows is such a crucial thing. And, most industries have trade shows of some kind, and going to those things and being open-minded and seeing what's new I think that's very important to, evolving and adapting to whatever's happening.
Absolutely. You got to be where the action is.
Yep, exactly.
Well, we kind of talked about how we got here. Let's take a look forward. Can you offer us a glimpse into some of your future plans and goals for your business?
Sure. Yeah, I think it's really just kind of the same mindset of continuing to grow based on our customers' needs. We're seeing more, as we've kind of trying to see more like print on demand, which is really where the digital production comes in. So, true like e-com fulfillment where there's a customer web store that they're managing or set up or whatever. And then as the end buyers are buying, on social media or however they're buying apparel, to have it custom decorated just integrates right into our system and we just produce it and ship it out the door. So I think continuing to kind of grow that kind of capabilities. We're looking into a little more kind of like almost like traditional pick pack fulfillment to go alongside of that. So say we have customers that want to have a print on demand program or some sort of inventory like e-com fulfillment type deal or whatever, but they also want to send us like, something we don't necessarily produce in house, like wall art or drinkware, umbrellas, something like that, even though sometimes we can produce things like that, but something where we would actually house as like an inventory and then ship doing like direct to consumer pick pack fulfillment. So that's something I think we're looking at that will involve more space. So I've got some plans here for further expansion on more square footage to
land baron.
So yeah, I'm working on some deals there. So I think it'll just kind of be continuing to focus on that and just overall improvement, right? We just want to get better at what we do and keep growing and just bigger, better, faster. So
Love it, man. Love it. Well, this is clearly a success story. You've got a great tale to tell. Let me get you out of here on this. Take yourself back, when you were first starting out in the basement, in the garage, and what advice would you offer to aspiring entrepreneurs that are thinking about doing their own thing?
yeah, I think really just like maybe a few things, but probably one is just stick with it. I think that it's I see entrepreneurs that get into something. We actually see it quite a bit with just like like t-shirt brands, like companies that want to have a brand of apparel or whatever, and they get into it and they're really motivated, and then it just kind of fizzles out, and they just don't do it for whatever reason. They hit some challenges and just didn't want to keep pushing on. And I think that it's crucial to just, if you know it's what you want to do and you're focused on it, just push through it and figure it out. Of course, easier said than done, but
Sure, yeah.
I think that's just something in general that I kind of just believe in, no matter what it is. If you're focused on what you want to do, I mean, there will be a solution. It's just a matter of how creative can you get to find it. Another thing too, that because I get asked this question sometimes too, I was pretty conservative on borrowing. Like have work like borrowing money to grow.
Yeah.
I really didn't do that at all. I think I did not. I did take out a loan at one point for a pretty large expansion on some equipment, but that was another thing I was pretty focused on, is let's try not to do that. A little bit different with the real estate, but as
Sure.
far as like, trying to live within your means sort of and grow the business within those means. Because I think then you're kind of setting yourself up for more stability, so
Yeah.
if something does go wrong, you're not sitting here with some bank payment for some equipment or something like that you have to stress out about. It's kind of just like, as you're seeing the success and as you got money coming in, let's figure out how to reinvest that as efficiently as possible. So that's another thing I think I see sometimes with businesses, is just that, and a misconception as well, to think that you have to like have a bunch of money to start a business.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily have to. You just have to find the right niche that you're good at and make it happen.
Sure.
So yeah.
Yeah. So has over time has your thoughts and opinions on debt changed, or are you still pretty conservative?
um I'm still pretty conservative. I mean, when it makes sense, or if there's a way to leverage, or depending on what growth strategies I could see coming up in the future. I mean, if we're looking for really big leaps, that might just be what's necessary. But overall, I still, it's just easy. I don't know. I just, yeah, overall, I'm still fairly conservative with debt, because pretty soon you end up, the bank owns your company, not you.
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
So
They're gonna want their money back at some point.
yeah, right. And I think it's still work, and there's a lot of stress with it, but owning a business should be what you want to do. It should be fun, right? It should be
Yeah.
something that you're passionate about and want to do it for yourself. So
Yep. Absolutely. Well, this has been great, man. Thank you so much for your time today. It was great meeting you
yeah,
and hearing your story.
sure. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Appreciate you coming here. All right, that wraps up this episode of Excellence Through Execution. Thank you all for joining us, and I look forward to seeing you in our next episode.